The sound of gunfire echoed through the dusty streets of Willow Creek, Arizona Territory, 1885. Sophia Larson ducked behind an overturned wagon, her heart pounding against her ribs like a trapped bird. She hadn't expected her journey west to turn into this nightmare, caught in the crossfire between lawmen and outlaws on her first day in town. Her blue traveling dress was smeared with dirt, her carefully pinned hair coming loose around her flushed face. This wasn't the new beginning she had imagined when she left Boston behind. Across the street, Kieran Foster spotted the woman hiding behind the wagon, clearly a stranger to both the town and the dangers of the frontier. He didn't know her, had never laid eyes on her before this moment, but something in her terrified expression pulled at him. The outlaw gang had chosen the worst possible time to rob the bank just as the stagecoach arrived with new folks looking to settle in town. "Stay down." Kieran shouted to her, tipping his hat lower over his eyes as he assessed the situation. 4 men, all armed, using the bank's stone facade as cover while they exchanged shots with Sheriff Williams and his deputies. Sophia nodded at the stranger's warning, pressing herself closer to the ground. She watched as the tall cowboy with the worn leather vest moved with purpose, his revolver steady in his hand. Something about the calm determination in his movements made her believe he might actually get them out of this alive. Kieran moved from the shelter of the blacksmith shop, keeping low. His plan was simple: circle behind the outlaws while the sheriff kept them occupied at the front. He'd almost made it to the alley beside the bank when he noticed one of the bandits breaking away, moving toward the overturned wagon where the woman was hiding. The outlaw had spotted her too. Without hesitation, Kieran changed course. The woman was a sitting duck and the outlaw was raising his gun. Time seemed to slow as Kieran lunged forward, shouting to distract the bandit. The man pivoted, firing wildly. The bullet struck Kieran in the shoulder, spinning him around. He managed to get off one shot as he fell, catching the outlaw square in the chest. The man dropped like a stone. Sophia screamed as she watched the cowboy who'd been trying to help her fall to the ground, his blood staining the dust beneath him. The remaining outlaws, seeing their companion fall and hearing the approaching hoofbeats of more lawmen, made a desperate dash for their horses. Sheriff Williams and his men gave chase, leaving the street momentarily quiet except for the groans of the wounded cowboy. Sophia gathered her courage and ran to him, kneeling beside his prone form. "Sir, can you hear me?" "You're hurt," she said, pressing her handkerchief against the wound in his shoulder. "Someone help," she called out, looking around frantically. Kieran's eyes fluttered open, finding the face of the woman he'd just taken a bullet for. She was pretty, he thought distantly, with those worried green eyes and wisps of auburn hair escaping her bonnet. "Wasn't worth it," he mumbled, wincing as pain lanced through him. Sophia stared down at this stranger who had risked his life for hers. "I think it was," she replied firmly, continuing to apply pressure to his wound. "I think it was worth every bit." Doc Simmons arrived moments later, kneeling beside them. "Let's get him to my office," he ordered, and several townsmen hurried to help carry Kieran. Sophia followed them, her traveling bag forgotten in the street. She didn't know this man, this cowboy who had saved her life, but she knew she couldn't leave him now. Kieran drifted in and out of consciousness as they carried him to the doctor's office. The bullet had gone clean through his shoulder, which Doc Simmons assured everyone was a good thing, though the blood loss was concerning. Sophia stayed, holding Kieran's hand while the doctor cleaned and bandaged the wound. "You're new in town," Doc Simmons observed as he worked. "Yes," Sophia replied. "I arrived on today's coach from Tucson. My name is Sophia Larson. I'm to be the new schoolteacher." "Well, Miss Larson, you've had quite an introduction to Willow Creek," the doctor said grimly. "And you've met one of our local heroes, Kieran Foster. Ranches north of town, good with horses, better with a gun, as you saw. Will he recover?" Sophia asked, looking down at the pale face of her rescuer. "If infection doesn't set in, yes, he's strong and he's survived worse." Doc Simmons finished his work. "He'll need rest, though, and someone to look after him for a few days." I can help, Sophia offered quickly, surprising herself. That is, if there's no one else. I owe him my life. The doctor eyed her thoughtfully. He lives alone out at his ranch, has a ranch hand or two, but they're busy with the cattle. It would be a help to have someone tend to him, but it's not exactly proper for a young, unmarried woman, especially our new schoolteacher. Sophia straightened her spine. Propriety seems a small concern when a man's life is at stake, doctor. Besides, I don't start my teaching position until next week. I can stay here in town and come to your office daily if that would be more appropriate. Before Doc could respond, Kieran stirred, his eyes opening to focus hazily on Sophia. You're still here, he murmured. Of course I am, she replied. You saved my life. He gave a weak smile. Welcome to the West, madam, not usually quite so exciting. I should hope not, Sophia said with a small laugh of relief. I'm Sophia Larson. Kieran Foster, he replied, then grimaced as he tried to shift position. Sorry about your introduction to town. I believe I'm the one who should be apologizing to you, Mr. Foster. You took a bullet meant for me. Kieran closed his eyes briefly. Wasn't worth it, he repeated softly. A stranger getting shot over another stranger. Sophia squeezed his hand gently. I think it was, she insisted, and I'm grateful. Sheriff Williams entered then, his expression grim but satisfied. Got 2 of them. The others escaped, but they won't get far. He looked down at Kieran. That was some fine shooting, Foster, especially with a bullet in you. Kieran attempted a shrug but stopped with a wince. Just happened to be in the right place. Wrong place, I'd say, the sheriff countered, but you saved the lady here and that's what matters. He tipped his hat to Sophia. Madam, I'm Sheriff Williams. Welcome to our town. I'm sorry about the circumstances. Thank you, Sheriff. I'm Sophia Larson, the new schoolteacher, the sheriff nodded. Mrs. Abernathy at the boarding house is expecting you. She was worried when you didn't arrive after the coach came in. I'll escort Miss Larson to the boarding house once we're done here, Doc Simmons said. And I need to talk to you about Foster's care. As the 2 men stepped aside to confer, Sophia turned back to Kieran. It seems I'll be staying at the boarding house in town. But I've volunteered to help with your recovery if you'll allow it. Kieran looked surprised, then wary. That's not necessary, Miss Larson. I heal quick. It's the least I can do, she persisted. And please call me Sophia. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Then I'm Kieran. And if the good doctor thinks I need looking after, who am I to argue? Their arrangement was settled by that evening. Kieran would stay in town at the doctor's office for 2 days until Doc Simmons was sure infection wouldn't set in. Then, if he was stable, he could return to his ranch with Sophia accompanying him as his nurse. Mrs. Abernathy, the boarding house owner, would send her teenage son along as a chaperone, and Sophia would return to town before dark each day. Sophia spent those 2 days learning the layout of Willow Creek, meeting her future students' parents and visiting Kieran for several hours each day. She discovered he was 32, had come west after the Civil War, and had built his ranch from nothing over the past 15 years. You're not married, she asked on the second day as she helped him sit up to eat some stew Mrs. Abernathy had sent over. Never found the time, Kieran replied with a slight smile. Or maybe the right woman. The ranch keeps me busy. He studied her as she adjusted his pillows. What about you? What brings a Boston lady all the way to Arizona territory to teach school? Sophia paused. How did you know I'm from Boston? Your accent, it's faint, but it's there. And your manners scream Eastern Finishing School, she laughed. Guilty as charged. I came west because I wanted adventure, I suppose. A life beyond what was expected of me. And was getting shot at on your first day the kind of adventure you had in mind? Not exactly, she admitted, but meeting brave cowboys wasn't out of the question. Kieran's eyes, a striking shade of blue, held hers for a moment longer than necessary before he looked away. Well, I hope the rest of your stay in Willow Creek is less eventful. On the 3rd day, Doc Simmons declared Kieran fit to return home, though he was to do nothing strenuous for at least 2 weeks. The wound is healing clean, he told Sophia. Just keep changing the bandages daily and make sure he doesn't tear it open again, being stubborn. The journey to Kieran's ranch took nearly an hour by wagon, with young Tommy Abernathy driving while Sophia sat beside Kieran in the back, supporting him when the road turned rough. The landscape opened up before them, rolling hills covered in scrub brush and cacti, distant mountains purple against the horizon, and a sky so vast and blue it made Sophia's heart ache with the beauty of it. "It's magnificent," she breathed. "It grows on you," Kieran agreed, watching her face. Even more beautiful at sunset. His ranch came into view, a modest but well-built house with a large barn and corral. Several horses grazed in a fenced pasture, and in the distance, cattle dotted the landscape. A grizzled man in his 50s emerged from the barn as they approached. "That's Hank," Kieran explained. "My foreman, been with me almost from the beginning." Hank hurried to the wagon as they stopped. "Boss, heard you got yourself shot. You look like hell." "Thanks, Hank. Good to see you too," Kieran replied with a dry smile. "This is Miss Larson, the new schoolteacher. She's going to be helping me for a few days." Hank tipped his hat to Sophia. "Madam, mighty kind of you. Mr. Foster saved my life," Sophia explained. "It's the least I can do." With Hank and Tommy's help, Kieran was settled in his bedroom, a surprisingly comfortable space with a large bed, a chest of drawers, and a window overlooking the corral. Sophia was shown to a small sitting room where she could wait while Kieran rested. "I'll be back to fetch you before dark, Miss Larson," Tommy promised before heading back to town. The ranch house was simple but well made, with solid furniture and a few unexpected touches, bookshelves filled with volumes of history and poetry, a piano in one corner of the main room, and watercolor landscapes on the walls. "My mother's," Kieran explained when he caught Sophia examining one of the paintings later that afternoon. He'd insisted on getting up and sitting in a chair in the main room. "She painted when I was a boy." "They're lovely," Sophia said sincerely. "Is she still living?" Kieran shook his head. "Lost both my parents to influenza when I was 16. That's when I headed west." "I'm sorry," Sophia said softly. "My mother died when I was 12. My father raised me alone. And where is he now?" "Still in Boston. He wasn't happy about my decision to come west, but he respected my choice." She smiled faintly. "He's a professor at Harvard. He had hopes I would marry one of his colleagues, but I wanted something different." "So you traded Boston society for dust and danger," Kieran observed. "Brave choice." "I'm beginning to think so," she agreed. "Though I didn't expect quite so much excitement quite so soon." The next few days fell into a rhythm. Tommy would drive Sophia out to the ranch each morning and return for her in the evening. She would change Kieran's bandages, prepare simple meals, read to him when he was too restless to sleep, and gradually help him regain his strength with short walks around the house and yard. They talked about books they'd read, places they'd seen or hoped to see, their childhoods, their dreams. Sophia told him about her desire to make a difference in children's lives through education. Kieran spoke of his struggles to establish his ranch and the satisfaction he felt watching it grow year by year. On the 5th day, Kieran insisted on showing Sophia his favorite spot on the property. She helped him saddle 2 horses she'd learned to ride during summers at her aunt's country home in Massachusetts, and they rode slowly to a rise overlooking a small creek lined with cottonwood trees. "This is where I decided to build," Kieran said as they sat side by side on a fallen log. "When I first saw this view, I knew this land was special." The late afternoon sun cast golden light across the landscape, turning the distant hills to flame and the creek to molten silver. A hawk circled lazily overhead, and somewhere, a coyote called. "I understand why," Sophia said, breathless with the beauty of it. "It feels like the edge of the world." "It felt like freedom to me," Kieran replied. "Room to breathe, to build something of my own." He was looking better today, Sophia noted. Color had returned to his face, and though he still favored his injured shoulder, his movements were more fluid. The time outdoors had brought a healthy flush to his cheeks. "You're staring," he said, breaking into her thoughts. Sophia blushed. I'm assessing my patient, she corrected primly. You're looking stronger today. I feel it, he agreed. Thanks to your care. The sincerity in his voice made her look away. Over the past days, she'd become increasingly aware of Kieran as more than just a patient. The strong line of his jaw, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the gentle way he spoke to his horses. It was inappropriate, she told herself. She was there as his nurse, nothing more. We should head back, she said, rising. Tommy will be arriving soon. Kieran stood as well, moving closer. Sophia, he said quietly, I've never properly thanked you for helping me these past days. There's no need, she replied, suddenly conscious of how close they were standing. You saved my life. I'm merely returning the favor. Is that all? He asked, his blue eyes searching hers. Before she could answer, the sound of hoofbeats made them both turn. Tommy was riding toward them, waving. Looks like your chaperone is early, Kieran said with a slight smile. The moment whatever it had been was broken. They rode back to the house in companionable silence, but Sophia felt something had shifted between them. The next day, Doc Simmons came to check on Kieran's progress and declared him well on the way to recovery. You won't need daily nursing anymore, he told them. The wound is healing nicely. Just take it easy for another week and you'll be back to normal. Sophia felt an unexpected pang at the news. Her time at the ranch had become the highlight of her days. She enjoyed the quiet moments reading to Kieran, their conversations that stretched long into the afternoon, even the simple tasks of preparing meals together. I suppose I should focus on preparing for my students, she said, as she and Kieran sat on the porch after the doctor left. School starts in just 3 days. Of course, Kieran agreed, though she thought she detected a note of regret in his voice. But perhaps you'd consider visiting now and then, Sunday dinners maybe, Sophia smiled. I'd like that. The following day was her last as Kieran's nurse. She arrived with a basket of fresh bread and preserves from Mrs. Abernathy, determined to make their final day special. They took another ride, this time to see a small herd of wild horses that sometimes grazed on the edge of Kieran's property. They watched from a distance as the magnificent animals moved across the landscape, the stallion proud and watchful, the mares and foals following his lead. They're so free, Sophia whispered, not wanting to disturb the scene. That's why I've never tried to catch them, Kieran explained. Some things should remain wild. The look he gave her sent warmth spreading through her chest. There was something building between them, something unexpected and thrilling. As the sun began to set, they reluctantly headed back to the ranch house. Tommy would arrive soon, and Sophia would return to town to begin her new life as Willow Creek schoolteacher. They had just reached the yard when the sound of galloping hooves made them both turn. It wasn't Tommy approaching, but Sheriff Williams, his face grim. Foster, Miss Larson. Thank God you're both all right, he called as he reined in his horse. What's happened? Kieran asked, instantly alert. Those outlaws from the bank robbery, the ones that got away, they've been spotted near town and we have reason to believe they're looking for revenge. The sheriff looked at Sophia. Particularly against you, Miss Larson. One of them was the brother of the man Foster killed while protecting you. Sophia felt the blood drain from her face. Me, but why? I didn't do anything. Doesn't matter to men like that, the sheriff said grimly. They want blood for blood. I sent Tommy back to town with an escort and came to warn you myself. It's not safe for Miss Larson to travel tonight. Kieran's expression hardened. She can stay here. I'll keep her safe. I've got men patrolling the roads, but these outlaws know the territory. Just keep your eyes open and your rifle handy. The sheriff tipped his hat. I'll send word when we catch them. As the sheriff rode away, Sophia turned to Kieran, fear evident in her expression. I don't want to put you in danger again. You're still recovering. Kieran's jaw set in a determined line. You'll be safer here than traveling back to town. Hank and I can keep watch. The house is solid and we've got plenty of ammunition. That night, Sophia slept fitfully in the small guest room, waking at every sound. Sometime after midnight, she gave up on sleep entirely and made her way to the kitchen for a glass of water. She found Kieran sitting at the table, a rifle across his knees, staring out the window at the moonlit yard. "You should be resting," she chided gently. He looked up, offering a tired smile. "So should you. I can't stop thinking about those men being out there, wanting revenge for something that wasn't even my fault." Kieran gestured for her to sit. "The West can be harsh, Sophia. Justice isn't always found in courtrooms here. Sometimes it's dealt with bullets." "That's barbaric," she said, sitting across from him. "Maybe, but there's a certain honesty to it too. A man stands by his actions." He studied her face in the dim light. "Are you regretting your adventure now?" Sophia considered the question. "No," she said finally. "Despite everything, I'm not sorry I came west. I've seen things I never would have seen in Boston. Met people I never would have known. People who get shot saving strangers," Kieran suggested with a hint of humor. "People worth knowing," she corrected softly. Their eyes held across the table and Sophia felt her heart quicken. The danger outside seemed to heighten everything, every feeling, every glance, every unspoken word between them. "You should try to sleep," Kieran said finally. "I'll keep watch. Your shoulder is healing well thanks to you." "Go on, Sophia. Tomorrow will come soon enough." She rose reluctantly. At the doorway, she paused. "Kieran, thank you again for everything." His smile was gentle in the moonlight. "It was worth it," he said softly. "Every bit." Dawn broke with no sign of the outlaws. Hank reported nothing unusual during his watch, and by mid-morning, a rider from town brought news that the sheriff's posse had tracked the outlaws to a camp 10 miles south and engaged them in a gunfight. One outlaw was dead, another captured, and the third had fled toward the Mexican border with several lawmen in pursuit. "The sheriff says it's safe for Miss Larson to return to town," the messenger reported. "He'll provide an escort this afternoon if you'd like." Relief washed over Sophia, but it was tinged with disappointment. Her time at the ranch was truly ending now. She had her teaching position to begin, her new life to establish in town. As she packed her few belongings, Kieran appeared in the doorway of the guest room. "So you'll be leaving today," he said, his expression unreadable. "Yes, it's time." Sophia folded her shawl carefully. "School begins on Monday, Sophia." Something in his tone made her look up. "These past days, they've meant something to me, more than I expected," her heart fluttered. "They've meant something to me too." He stepped into the room, closing the distance between them. "When I took that bullet, I told you it wasn't worth it. A stranger risking his life for another stranger. And I said I thought it was," she remembered, her voice barely above a whisper. "You were right," he said, reaching out to touch her cheek gently. "Because you're not a stranger anymore, Sophia Larson, and if I had to do it again, I wouldn't hesitate." The tenderness in his eyes took her breath away. Kieran, whatever she might have said, was lost as his lips met hers, gentle at first, then with growing urgency. Sophia responded with a passion that surprised her, her hands finding his shoulders, careful of his wound even in this moment of abandon. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kieran rested his forehead against hers. "I know it's too soon," he murmured. "We've only known each other a week, but I feel like I've been waiting for you all my life." Sophia's heart soared at his words. "I'm not leaving Willow Creek," she reminded him. "I'll be just an hour's ride away." "Too far," he said with a smile, brushing his thumb across her lower lip. "But I suppose it will have to do for now." The weeks that followed were the happiest of Sophia's life. She threw herself into her teaching duties, quickly winning the hearts of her students and the respect of their parents. Every Sunday, Kieran would arrive in town to escort her to services at the small church, and afterward they would spend the afternoon together, either at his ranch or walking through town. Their courtship became the talk of Willow Creek. The handsome rancher and the refined Eastern schoolteacher made an unlikely but appealing couple. Even Mrs. Abernathy, who had initially been concerned about propriety, softened when she saw how Kieran looked at Sophia like she was the sun and stars all rolled into one. As autumn painted the landscape in golds and reds, Sophia found herself falling deeply in love with both the territory and with Kieran. His strength, his gentle humor, his unwavering integrity, all of it called to something within her that she hadn't known existed until she came west. One crisp October afternoon, Kieran took her riding to the spot by the creek where they had sat weeks before. The cottonwoods were brilliant yellow now, their leaves shimmering in the breeze. "I've been thinking," Kieran said as they dismounted, "about what you said when we first met." "I said many things," Sophia replied with a smile. "Which particular wisdom are you referring to when I said taking that bullet wasn't worth it, and you said you thought it was?" He took her hands in his. "You were right, Sophia. Meeting you that day was worth everything, the pain, the recovery, even facing down those outlaws again, because it brought you into my life." Sophia's eyes filled with tears at the raw emotion in his voice. Kieran, he knelt before her, still holding her hands. "I know it hasn't been that long, but when you know, you know. Out here life is uncertain. I don't want to waste a single day. Sophia Larson, will you marry me?" Joy bubbled up inside her, bright and unstoppable. "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Yes, Kieran Foster, I will marry you." He rose, gathering her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that left her breathless. When they finally broke apart, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring, a delicate gold band with a small diamond that caught the afternoon sun. "It was my mother's," he explained as he slid it onto her finger. "I've been carrying it with me for weeks, waiting for the right moment." "It's beautiful," Sophia whispered, admiring how it looked on her hand, "and this moment is perfect." They were married on Christmas Eve in the town church, with the entire community in attendance. Sophia wore a dress of ivory satin that Mrs. Abernathy and several other ladies had helped her make. Kieran, handsome in a new black suit, couldn't take his eyes off her as she walked down the aisle on Sheriff Williams' arm, the lawman having offered to stand in for her absent father. "You are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen," Kieran whispered as she reached his side. "Worth taking a bullet for," she teased softly. His answering smile was radiant. "Worth everything." Their first months of marriage were a joyful adjustment. Sophia continued teaching until the end of the school year, riding to and from town with Kieran each day. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch of their ranch house, watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors, talking about their days and their dreams for the future. Sophia planted a garden, filling it with not just practical vegetables, but flowers, two splashes of color against the rugged landscape. Kieran expanded the house, adding another bedroom and enlarging the kitchen to give Sophia more space to work. By their first anniversary, Sophia had news to share. As they sat in their special spot by the creek, she took Kieran's hand and placed it gently on her still flat stomach. "I have a gift for you," she said softly. "One that will arrive next summer." Kieran's eyes widened, then filled with tears of joy. "A baby, we're having a baby." Sophia nodded, her own eyes glistening. "Your child, Kieran, our child." He gathered her in his arms, holding her as if she were made of the finest porcelain. "I never thought I could be this happy," he murmured against her hair. "When I came west, all I wanted was land of my own, a place to belong. I never dreamed I would find you." "And I only came seeking adventure," Sophia replied, leaning back to look into his beloved face. "I found so much more." Their daughter, Catherine, was born on a warm June night with Doc Simmons attending and Mrs. Abernathy assisting. She had Kieran's blue eyes and Sophia's auburn hair, and from her first breath, she had both parents wrapped around her tiny finger. As Sophia nursed their child in the rocking chair Kieran had made, he knelt beside them, his expression one of wonder. "Thank you," he said, gently stroking his daughter's cheek. "For our beautiful girl, for our life together." Sophia smiled, her heart so full it felt it might burst. "Remember what you said when we met, that taking that bullet wasn't worth it. And you said you thought it was," Kieran finished. "You were right, my love, so very right." "I knew it even then," Sophia said softly. "Somehow I knew you were worth everything." Outside their window, the Arizona sun set in a blaze of crimson and gold. painting the land they both loved in the colors of promise and hope. Inside, in the warmth of their home, the family that began with a moment of danger and courage looked toward a future bright with possibilities. For Kieran Foster and Sophia Larson, the journey that had begun with gunfire and pain had led to a love stronger than either could have imagined. A love worth risking everything for. A love born in the wild expanse of the West, where the sky stretched forever and second chances were possible for those brave enough to seize them. As twilight deepened into night, Kieran placed a gentle kiss on his wife's forehead, then on his daughter's downy head. "I love you both more than life itself," he whispered. Sophia looked up at him, this man who had once been a stranger and was now the center of her world. "And we love you," she replied, "today, tomorrow, and always." Together they watched as their daughter drifted to sleep, her tiny hand clutching her father's finger. Outside, coyotes called to the rising moon, and somewhere in the distance, wild horses ran free across the land that had brought them together. In the years that followed, their family grew. A son joined them 2 years later, Samuel, with his father's quiet strength and his mother's love of books. Kieran's ranch prospered, becoming one of the largest and most respected in the territory. Sophia established a proper school building in town, eventually training other teachers as Willow Creek grew. They never forgot how they met that moment of danger and sacrifice that had brought them together. Each year, on the anniversary of the day Kieran took a bullet saving a stranger, they would return to their special spot by the creek. They would sit together, watching the play of light on water, remembering how close they had come to never knowing each other at all. "Wasn't worth it," Kieran would tease, echoing his words from that first day, and Sophia would always reply with love shining in her eyes, "I think it was." Their story became legend in Willow Creek, the Eastern school teacher and the rancher who found love amid gunfire and danger. Parents told it to their children, who told it to theirs. A testament to courage, to sacrifice, to the unexpected ways that love can find us when we least expect it. And in the end, it was a simple truth that endured. Sometimes the greatest adventures, the deepest loves, begin with a single moment of bravery. A bullet taken, a life saved, a chance worth taking. For Kieran and Sophia Foster, that chance had made all the difference.